Hello everyone, it's Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at a VR. It's not a recent VR, it's something that has been around for a few months actually. It's called Hearth and Home decks, and it's a VR to Don Michel Tarot. So I've always really loved all of the prompts for this VR, and I thought about it for a long time. But I never really felt like I wanted to participate on this particular one. And the reason was that while I was still living at the old place, so if you follow my channel, you know that I have just recently moved to a new place. And while I was living in the other place, I was still thinking that I wasn't really feeling home. I was actually missing home. And for me, home, it's always a bit of a mixed kind of feelings. Word, because it's not something that I identify with an easy way. I, to this day, after 17 years of living in Australia, I still do not know if I actually call home Australia, or if every time I come home, for me, it means going back to Italy. So where, you know, my heart is here with my husband in Australia, but my heart is also my beloved friends, and my friends are all back in Italy. So to this day, I still don't know. What I can say though is that ever since we moved to a new place, it feels a lot more like home. I would say more than any other place we've been in Australia. So I think it's about time. And then on the other hand, I was thinking, you know what? I mean, it might be some way of even baptizing the new place. You know, you just go to a new place and do a VR about feeling home. And you'll see the prompts is all about being cozy and you know, the light in the darkness and everything. And so I thought, let's go for it, because if I wait for myself to be convinced about something, it might take years. So here we are. And you know, it was fun because this morning I actually saw Sharon from Trio of Witches Tarot, who also participated in this VR for the first time, and I watched her videos this morning and I thought to myself, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is. I really need to do my VR to this tag. So let's have a look. So the first prompt is Hearth and Home, the deck that feels like coming home. And I don't know if you noticed, but I still have some Halloween decoration going on here, because I feel that you're still allowed a certain amount of skulls in your life even after Halloween. But the deck I want to talk about for this prompt is the Savvy Soul Tarot by Julie Whitelash. I am just going to zoom in so I can give you a nice view of this deck. If you watch my channel, you will know how much I love this deck, but you will also know the reason why I actually love it so much. And it's because every time that I use this deck, which by now has been probably in the hundreds of times, even though I have just received it a year ago. I think I received it in November last year. It was a Kickstarter that went on in March, April, I want to say, and then the deck started to be sent off in October. Mine arrived in November, at the end of November, and it has not left my desk. Well, apart from the couple of weeks in which it's been in the box because we were moving. But ever since then, it's been one of my favorite ones to use. And the reason I keep on saying this, it feels almost as if this deck is based on my life. Not necessarily because of, you know, me recognizing people or, I don't know, even places, but because it really feels like it's reminding me of events that happen in my life, of, you know, situations, perhaps even people, in the sense of when we see a person in the court cards as an archetype. So I definitely see that. The Queen of Wands, I know who that is. And I feel at home with each and every one of these cards. It feels at home. It feels like I'm coming home. It feels like I know what this card is going to tell me. There are no surprises. There might be surprises when a certain card comes up, but when the card comes up, it always drives the message with a certain familiarity, because I recognize it. I feel like it's speaking just to me, directly to me. And I also feel like it's something that it's going to take my hand and make me feel welcome. Even when the message is harsh, even when the message is, you know, a bit difficult to accept, whatever that is, it doesn't matter, because this deck is home and you accept it. Even when, you know, you're going home and there's someone who's criticizing you, you may be grumpy about it. It might be a brother, it might be a parent, it might be children, it might be your children, but it's always something that you accept because it's home. It feels like home, and so you accept it. From nobody else you will, but from them it's still okay. So this is the Service Soul Tarot, and it's the Hearth and Home, a deck that feels like coming home. The next prompt is the Gather Together, the deck that reminds you of family and friends. I had to go with the answer deck. Again, if you watch my channel, you've heard me talk about this deck a number of times. This is a deck that, well, as you can see, is bruised and battled because I've used it for so many years and very, very often. It is one of those decks that it's absolutely final and unmovable. It's one of those decks that whenever the answer comes to you, you have to accept it because there's absolutely no wiggle room whatsoever. And because of that, I used to use it with a friend of mine, the friend that is no longer with us. And we used to use it for the really important stuff, and he was always telling us the true things, that everything that's going to happen, it was in this answer deck. Whatever the answer was, you could take it to the bank because it was going to happen, even if it felt like it was completely off, that it was completely impossible, but it always came true. And because of that, we used to call it the Jumanji deck. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the franchise, but Jumanji, because before it actually became a franchise, it was actually a one-off movie with Robbie Williams, and it's the story of this. It's very similar to the franchise. Basically, it's this kid that finds this board game. It's a very old one. It's a very mysterious one, and he starts playing with friends. And once you start playing with that board game, you're sucked into the game, but it's in a different dimension. And you're transported in this world where, you know, you're confronted with your fears and with something that, you know, it's challenging your life at each and every step. And that's the reason why this friend of mine and I call this deck Jumanji, because that's exactly the feeling you get. When you start using this deck, you cannot stop halfway. You have to finish the game. You have to finish reading with it, because the stuff that it tells you, it's something that is always very challenging, is always very hard to accept, but you also know that it's the truth. And so it does remind me of friends and family, because I've used this so many times with friends and family, but in specific with this friend of mine. And I remember that was a wonderful thing that she did for me, and I'll always be grateful. She knew that she was going to pass away, and so she wrote a letter to be read at her wake. And in the wake, she also said that this life has been like Jumanji, because it's full of adventures and, you know, surprises and stuff. And I knew that then it was a reference to this deck, because we used to laugh about it all the time. And so that's something that I will always take with me. And on top of everything, I have used this deck with another really dear friend of mine, and we always refer back to this deck as the Jumanji deck. Even though, as I repeat, it's called the answer deck, by the way. Sorry, I don't know if I actually said that. It's an old deck by Running Press. You know, those really small ones that you could find as a purchase buy close to the checkout. And, you know, because you saw it, it was like, oh, I might grab a copy, and it was only a few dollars. So I think it's out of print, but you can still find it. Someone might be selling it on eBay or one of the Facebook groups. And then recently, another girlfriend in the tarot community knew that I was looking for another copy of this deck, because mine is really, you know, falling apart. And she found it for a decent price, because the prices I would find it were like $400 for it. And so she got it for me. And that even more reminds me of, you know, these meaningful connections in the tarot community. The next prompt is Light Up Your Life, the deck that lights your way through the dark. I had to go with the Mother Nirvana Oracle. And I think that this is probably one of the few mass market decks that I've got for you today. Sorry about that. It's just that I really wanted to show you the decks that really made a difference when I was reading the prompts out loud and I was thinking about them. And so there's only one mass market or two. But the other ones, I'll make sure, I will link all of these decks in the description box below if they're still available. Obviously, if they're out of print, I can't do that. But if you want to buy them, you'll still find the link. So the Modern Nirvana Oracle is by Jennifer Sodini and the team that cooperated with her. It has been illustrated by Natalie Miller. And this deck, to be honest with you, there's a few cards that really represents life and light, and the concept of life and light, and the way in which creating connection actually helps us going through the darkness. And each and every concept, the guidebook is very well done, but each and every concept is so very well expressed in the cards themselves through the artwork, the color palette, and also the keywords, which are very clear and very important. The only exception is the sigils. I'm not, let's say, savvy enough on sigils to be able to actually see the connection immediately. For that, I need to either refer back to the keyword and then look into the guidebook, or after a few times that I've used this deck, I kind of make the connection by remembering it. But let's say 99% of this deck is so very clear, and it can be read even without going through the guidebook, because it is so very evocative. It's a very intuitive kind of deck. And it's one of those decks that is actually very touching and very moving. So there are a few of these cards that came to me at a very specific time in my life, in which they show me the situation as it was, but not with a slap in the face like sometimes some tarot decks can do. And not necessarily with a hug either. It's just a way in between. It's a way of saying, just accept what it is. And remember that, you're not alone if you create connections. This bird card is very powerful, because it really shows you the situation is very dire. You're on a very, thin boat, and it's the choppy waters are really threatening you, and because you're not in enough danger, it's raining just on top of you, because the cloud is just there. It's just on top of you. I don't know if you can see that through the lens, but the rain is just on the character here. And on top of everything, because that's not tragic enough, there's also an eclipse. So if you're going through something, the message from this card is to keep going, because it's temporary. It will pass. These too shall pass. There are so many of these really moving cards in this deck, and let's face it, the artwork is fantastic. Another card that I really consider one of my favorite one is the kintsugi kind of card, which is this one here, and it reminds you of the concept of creating beauty even when there is something broken. So when you're broken, putting yourself back together, create something completely different. And the beauty is in the scars, because what happens is that the Japanese ceramic masters, when they complete the kintsugi as a concept, they actually use pure gold. That's the original. So you can find other, let's say, pottery that has been worked and reassembled thanks to lead. In some cases, they use lead. In other cases, they may use silver, but the original one, the one that is actually meant to be also, I would say, almost vocational, in the sense that it takes a long time for a ceramic master to actually obtain those skills in order to be able to do a good job. That's with the original. It's the gold. It needs to be used, the gold needs to be used as the material that is gluing all the pieces back together. And therefore, you obtain this kind of new and renewed beauty, like a phoenix that is rebirthing out of the ashes. And of course, you can imagine how powerful the message of that card is. And as I said, there's many of these cards that really strike a chord in my heart whenever I pull them. It is that kind of deck that I really use when I want to go through the darkness, because I need some kind of light guidance. So this is the Modern Nirvana Oracle. So the next prompt is the rainy days, the deck you want to curl up with on a rainy day. And I had to go with the Blue Earth Tarot by Alison Davis. I have a very special bond with this deck. I don't see it often on social media, on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or Discord. I don't. And I feel sorry because I feel that there's a lot of people that could actually benefit by having this deck. The emotions that this deck facilitates are very intense, and there is a slight melancholy that pervades this deck in each and every card. It also helps you by focusing on your own feeling. So it's a really beautiful indie deck. I think the creator is Canadian. I bought it directly from them, so I think it's Canadian. So this deck, first and foremost, is obviously there's a lot of rain. That's why it also reminded me of the rainy day prompts, because you will see a lot of water droplets. The water droplets are there for a reason. It can be seen as rain, but it can also be seen as tears. And the fact that there's so much blue and shades of blue, from dark blue, midnight blue, indigo, etc., you name it, it's also referring back to the concept of using blue to signify, the sadness. This is a deck that I honestly, sometimes I need to take my time with it. It is, as you can see, a peepish deck. I don't mind that. I find that each and every card, even when they're peeps, there's actually a lot of meaningful peeps. It's not, two cups. The two cups is not just two cups. There is a lot that speaks, in the cards, a lot of elements that actually convey the message behind the meaning of the card. This is one of those decks, as I said before, that you need to take your time with, because it's not an easy deck. Some cards are very intense. Some cards are almost confrontational, but in a very simple way. So this is not a visual attack. Visually, this deck is very, not monotone, but because it's only about shades of blue and white, it doesn't have any kind of fire energy to it. As a matter of fact, even the suit of wands does not feel necessarily fiery. That's where you have to bring back your skills and understanding what the deck interpretation of the suit of wands is. The whole deck has this kind of color palette, as you can see. So obviously it's up to you to find the earthy energy in the suit of pentacles, as I said, the fiery energy in the suit of wands, and so on and so forth. I do believe, though, that this deck is very conducive of that sense of being with ourselves, and perhaps that being with ourselves is also very useful when you want to concentrate, when you want to meditate, when you want to touch base with your own feelings and decide to do perhaps a bit of a small assessment of what's going on, and get back in touch with with what you're feeling. And this is a really beautiful card, the Empress card, because on the one hand it does remind you a little bit of a pregnant Empress, because it could be, it could be the symbol of a pregnant belly. But what I choose to see in this card, what I feel like I should see in this card, is the way in which the Empress is embracing the cosmic sky. So this sky full of stars, and these stars are blue, just as blue as the midnight sky. And it's a kind of an invitation to see the Empress from this point of view, the nurturing side of the Empress, but not just the proactive side, not just the movement in the Empress, but also the static side, the side that is actually embracing the world and the cosmos. And I really adore it. And you know what? It actually pairs up really, really well with the Endless Oracle by Eric Mel. So it's actually one of those decks that when I have a deck that pairs up really well with a tarot, I'm actually even happier to have it. It's almost as if it were giving me an even additional reason why to use it. So this is the Blue Earth Tarot. The next prompt is Harvest Nights, the deck that evokes harvest vibes or bonfire nights. I had to go with The Art of Life and Curiosity by Mairead Ashcroft. This deck, which is, you can see the box here, so I just acquired this deck when I was in Sydney for the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. Mairead was there with her own stand, and she is a fantastic character. I absolutely loved seeing her work. Her art is crazy beautiful, and the way in which she uses art is very similar to the way in which I use tarot. So she focuses on art as the expression of feeling for personal growth, and also for processing grief and trauma, which is what I do with tarot. So we had a lot to talk about, and she was absolutely lovely. So I purchased a deck, and I filmed a couple of shots of her shop, let's say, and the work that she's doing, because many of these, so all of this is her artwork, and it comes from a place deep within herself. She is literally drawing these images with multimedia. So something could be a collage, it could be oil painting, it could be watercolor, it could be digital art, it could be anything. I don't even know, because I'm not that savvy when it comes to you know, the methods of producing art, but she is absolutely fantastic. And she showed me her journal, and her journal, and I kid you not, originally must have been this thick, and now when at the end, when she's finished it, it's actually this thick. And the reason is that she works so much on the graphics, on the paintings, on the images for each and every page, that of course it adds up on the inks, you know, and it's really creating this kind of thickness, and it looks so lived. It looks so worn, and something like it's very cozy. It becomes your sense of celebration of life, because expressing this much, even when a card is about recovery. So this card, I'm just gonna quickly read you the prompts. Recovery: where can you go to ask for support when you experience a crisis of any kind? And you will see that each and every card has got these kind of prompts that can help you with journaling. Even when a card is muted in the sense of the meaning like this, but it's still full of life, there's butterflies here. It is just absolutely beautiful the way in which she is putting together all of these fantastic colors. Look at the Dawn card, isn't it absolutely beautiful? And so just because I know I shouldn't, and I told myself that I wouldn't have, otherwise this video will go on forever, but I just wanted to show you how beautiful this deck pairs up with the Yoga Tarot. So I had to look for it because it's in one of the boxes. So it pairs up so well with the Yoga Tarot that I actually bought the Yoga Tarot because I immediately knew I had seen it before. When I saw this Oracle deck, I thought, okay, this is going to be spectacular. And it really is, and I am so very happy that I found it. And by the way, the Yoga Tarot is very recent. It's by Los Carabel. If you are familiar with the previous edition of the Yoga Tarot, this is a, I think the images are very similar. So there was an older edition that went out of print, of course, but they reprinted, and it looks absolutely fantastic. And look how beautiful these two are together. It's not just a communion of colors, because obviously we're talking about very saturated color, very really nice and, you know, sparkling colors in both of the decks. But it's also because the concept of both the decks is about, you know, having the possibility to be grounded and having the possibility to do this work of personal growth and asking yourself how best to be yourself, how best to express yourself. And I just really love it. I even think that the artwork is very similar, the way in which it is expressed, you know, with the simplicity of the line. Of course, the Oracle varies a lot even when it comes to the artwork, but if you compare these cards together, you will see how much resonance there is between the two of them, and how strong a conversation they're actually having when you read them together. So I just wanted quickly to show you because these two together are absolutely brilliant and I really, really love them. Obviously, there are some cards whenever there's a collage, for example, that kind of clash, but the majority of the cards of the Oracle really pairs up well with the Yoga Tarot. So this is the Art of Life and Curiosity Reflection cards, and it's my prompt for the Harvest Nights. So the next prompt is Handmade with Love, the deck that feel like a homespun gift. I had to go with the Oracle When Olga Speaks. Now, to be honest with you, I thought I would have had good news, and I seem to remember for some reason I may have dreamed it. Okay, so the story of this deck is like this. This is an Oracle deck. It's a really beautiful Oracle deck. It's by Artsy Girl Be Like, so that's her Instagram handle. I follow the artist on Instagram, but there's a lot of us that are fan of her work. And what happened was that this was originally a Kickstarter that unfortunately, you know, sometimes the timing is not right, and so it does not fund. And so it wasn't funded, but everyone was heartbroken because of that. And so what happened was that the artist actually released a limited number of 200 copies through Make Playing Cards. And so what happened was that I was on holiday and I was climbing the steps of the Batu Caves in Malaysia. And there's like, I don't know, 500-600 steps. With 40 degrees and 90 Celsius and 99% humidity, I can assure you it's not fun to climb those steps. And it's one of the most Instagrammable places in the world because each and every step is painted a different color. So if you take a photo from the bottom of the steps, obviously you have this really nice rainbow. But as you can imagine, actually being there with the humidity and climbing the steps, totally different thing. So I got an alert on my phone, and someone from Facebook was alerting me on the fact that there was this possibility to buy the deck on Make Playing Card, but I was in Malaysia and I was, you know, climbing the steps, and I was like, how am I going to be able to actually make the order on Make Playing Cards? And it's also because I don't know if you're familiar with the website or not, but sometimes it's not the easiest website to navigate when you're looking for something specific, unless you spell it completely, you know, correctly, or if you know how to look for it, then you can find it, but it's not the easiest thing. And I've had several people reaching out to me when I was showing decks that I purchased through their website, asking me how, you know, to send the actual link, because they just could not Google or put in the name of the deck on the search engine. It just wouldn't come out. Sorry, I'm off the tangent here. I'm not even talking about the deck, but it is about the deck. So what happened was that I took a moment. I told my husband, look, I really want this deck, and it was so very affordable, and I got a copy. And the week after, I was back in Australia. I was back in Sydney, and there it was on my doorstep. And I was like, how is that even possible? It normally takes 3 weeks just for the shipping cost, transport, and then, you know, Make Playing Cards does not necessarily print out stuff the very same day you put the order in. So that was really shocking in a good way. And then, you know, I started reading with this deck. I started looking at the cards, and I'm so very happy that I got it. And I really wanted to give you good news in the sense that there were rumors that the creator was going to relaunch a Kickstarter. And I don't know if I dreamt about it, but I think that they actually sent out an email on a newsletter saying that they will. But then before filming today, I actually wanted to put the link to, you know, sometimes on Kickstarter you can actually see what's coming soon, and I can't find it. I can only find the unsuccessful campaign, so unless it's changed the name. In any case, I'm not saying it's not gonna come to Kickstarter. I'm just saying that I cannot confirm it 100% because unfortunately I couldn't find the link. But this deck is fantastic, and the reason I chose this deck is because the name is When Olga Speaks, and Olga is the name of the grandma, the creator's grandma, and each and every card reminds the creator, and perhaps each and every one of us, because we all had a grandma although I didn't. I mean, I didn't because I didn't meet her. She passed away. They both passed away because it was before I was born. But I had an auntie that pretty much worked like a grandma when it comes to the wisdom that it passed down through generations. And we all know that kind of wisdom that comes with age and love. And so it comes from a place of love. It comes from, it's a gift that is being given to us thanks to the fact that the Creator has accepted to, you know, just share the wonderful sayings of her grandma about life through this deck. So I highly recommend it. It's a photographic collage. If it does end up being relaunched on Kickstarter, this is a really wonderful deck, and it pairs up really well with a lot of collage deck, as you can imagine. So this is the Handmade with Love choice, and it's the When Olga Speaks Oracle. The next prompt is the Thankful, Grateful, Blessed. The deck that helps you appreciate the good times. I had to go with the Pocket of Vines. This is it. So this deck is out of print. It's hard to find, although I heard, again, I cannot confirm it, but I did hear that it's going to be reprinted. Now, this deck can actually trade for hundreds of dollars. However, I was so very lucky to find someone here in Australia that accepted to sell it to me for the price they paid for it. So I think it was $55 originally. So she kept it in a bag, and the bag actually lost some of the ink that went through the cards. As you can see, I don't know if you can see through the camera, but some of the cards have some kind of staining to them. But what happens is that I actually had a look at it, and the more I look at it, the more I like it this way. And I don't know if I would actually like it as much as I do, wear it completely clean, wear it pristine, you know, mint condition. Because this gives it such a strong personality, such a strong character, that I actually really, really appreciate it. And it's a really happy coincidence. I really enjoy using this deck the way it is now. So ironically, I honestly think that I would have had a different reaction to it had it been clean, had it not had stains. And I know that I keep on saying that I'm not going to show it with pairings because I promised myself I wouldn't, otherwise the video is going to be super long. But this is a deck that actually really blows my mind when I use it as an oracle deck between two tarot cards, because I look at the keywords at the bottom. I don't really focus on the tarot card, but just on the keywords. And it pairs up really, really well with the Ophidia Rosa. So the Ophidia Rosa, Leyland Rose website, I think it pairs up with the Adorbita as well, which is another deck that I just got in recently. But look at this. It's incredible. And it's just amazing, and you appreciate the stains even more because it actually reminds you of the coloring of the Ophidia Rosa. Now these two, as I said, if you focus on the keywords and then you just expand the message with the two tarot cards on the side, this is actually working really well as an oracle deck. And I have to say, just to expand on that even more, that to be honest with you, the suit names have been renamed. And so I don't necessarily always remember which is which. What happens is that when so because of the way in which my brain is wired, whenever I see something that doesn't immediately click, I actually get lifted away from the reading. So obviously it's needles is swords. I get that because needles, it's also because the suit of swords in many other decks has been renamed as needles. But herbs, I think to myself, well, it's probably pentacles because it's related to earth, you know, the craft of herbs. And then I go, the craft must be, you know, it must be a code card because it's on a number, but then I need to think about it. And then I look at the keywords and I can't immediately identify that. And then I see that there's the name of the actual plant. So there's a number of things. And then I see the eyes and I think to myself, hang on a second, perhaps eyes is pentacles because of the shape. you know, and then I look at community, harmony, joy, and then I think to myself, now perhaps it's actually cups. So if I, so obviously after you read with this deck for a couple of times, you will remember the difference between the names, but it's still something that it's kind of confusing. And so I just really like to use it this way as an oracle deck, and it's been working perfectly like that. And so I'm quite happy to, you know, let myself be transported by the messages of the cards, and then, you know, shift the focus onto the tarot, and it just works wonders, and it's really beautiful. And this is making me very thankful that I can actually do this, because it's creating something additional. It's an additional layer in which I can actually use a deck. And so this is the prompt for thankful, grateful, and blessed. And last but not least, we've got the prompt comfy and cozy, the deck that is always there for you. And I had to go with the Modern Seer Tarot. It's created and written by Christine McGraw. This deck is absolutely fantastic. So Christine is an artist, a visual artist and paintress. The work that characterizes the let's say her opera is completely different. So I'm just going to show you the cards. But if you look at these cards and you think that her production is similar, it's actually not. Unfortunately, this deck not only is out of print, but it's also very difficult to find, because the original website that was you know, dedicated to selling these decks has been reappropriated by the domain register. So what you can do, you can post an ISO in search of on a Facebook group, or you can search for it on eBay. This is a fantastic deck. It's very minimalist, as you can tell. There's just one line or several lines that is actually tracing the contour, the shape of objects and symbols, people on the card. But it conveys, with just one line or just a few lines, it conveys such a strong sense of meaning that is very touching, and I absolutely love it. It's I personally love this type of art. I know an artist that is you know, doing this, and I purchased a couple of paintings from him. I really appreciate it, and I know that I keep on saying that, but I just have to show you how beautiful this deck is when you pair it up with an oracle that I just have here, which is the Vessel Oracle. Now, the Vessel Oracle obviously gives it a bit of a perspective that is, I don't want to call it shadow work, because it's not. It's inner healing work, as in, you know, you feel like you're being healed by the cards, especially I would say because of the messages on the oracle. But the line work is very similar. The Vessel Oracle doesn't have a vast array, a vast gamut of colors, therefore you don't have a clash between, let's say, a really saturated and very colorful deck and a muted deck. So you don't have that kind of clash. There's a lot of resonances and echoes when it comes to the line work, because the Vessel Oracle uses that kind of art style as well. But what really works is the fact that the Vessel Oracle has got such powerful keywords, and the work you can do with these two together, because they're minimalist, I believe that's the reason why you can really go that deep. Because you're not distracted. You're not distracted by colors, you're not distracted by symbols, you're not distracted by the brush strokes in some cases. And I really appreciate every time I use these two together. It feels like I can actually do a lot of personal growth. And I'm always very thankful to have a deck that lets me do that. So this was the last prompt in this VR, which was a lot of fun, but it was so very meaningful for me, as I said, because I moved to a new place. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. It means a lot for me if you leave me a comment, if you like, If you like it, then you can share it as well. You know, it helps to grow my channel, and it helps also myself to create these wonderful connections that are ever so meaningful for me. So thank you and have a great day.